Good morning, everybody. I am Sarah Krom, Managing Partner of SKC and Co CPAs. Welcome to our very last office hour of 2025. Just a couple of housekeeping items to go over with you today. This is being recorded. We will send a link to the video early next week if you registered for this, or we will archive it on the resources section of our webpage if you want to revisit it or share it with a colleague who couldn't make it today. We always like to make these office hours as beneficial as possible to you, so please put any questions that you have into the chat. If we can't get to them, we will include the answers in the email that we send next week that also includes that video link. So without further ado, today I am pleased to be joined by my two partners, Andrea Diaz and Caitlin Smith. Welcome, ladies.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
This is my favorite office hours when the three of us all get to be together. We try to have at least one every year where the three of us come together to talk about a shared topic. So today we're going to be talking about looking into the future and setting us up as business owners for success. We're going to cover several topics today. So let's jump in first, starting with economic trends. As we know, there are several economic trends that we're hearing about in headlines going into 2026. Today, we're going to cover three. The first one is uncertainty. There's a moderate prediction going forward for growth in global GDP. There's obviously trade tensions continuing to happen, and there's a lot of political uncertainty and risk out there. So, Andrea, I'll start with you as a sort of umbrella question. What does all of this mean for business owners?
I'd like everybody to know that Sarah actually sends these questions to us beforehand. And as I was going through this, I was like, wow, what a loaded question at 9 a.m. on a Friday morning. But hey,
You're
let's get right
welcome.
into it. Um, so I've had, as November and December, as we all know, and Caitlin and Sarah, I'm sure you're both doing the same thing. We're meeting with all of our clients right now. We're year-end tax planning. We're budgeting for 2026. We're talking about what has happened, what we want to happen, and of course, all of the uncertainty about the external forces surrounding our businesses come into play, right? So, some of the things that business owners are doing and what we're recommending to do. One, take a look at where who your clients are, right? What industries are they in? We did this exercise a long time ago to see where our revenue sources are coming from by industry, to then understand how could that particular industry be impacted by I'm not going to call it turmoil, forces, external forces
Uncertainty.
beyond our control, right? That's one place to start because we want to then plan to say, okay, if our revenue decreases by 20%, put in place a plan. We did what if planning back in 2020 during the COVID times. What if this happens, then this. We want to make those decisions, and not just theoretically, but want to have a tangible, actual plan because we're better planners and we make better decisions when we're not under stress. So if we know that in an event something happens, we are going to do A, B, and C, even though we may divert from that plan, at least we have a plan to go back to. At least we have a starting point, and a starting point that was generated while we were not under stress and just in a planning period. We want to make sure that we have a strong cash position unfortunately, for some industries or some businesses, they may not be planning. They may find themselves in an unfortunate position. And fortunately or unfortunately, that could present some opportunities for other business owners. So we want to have a little bit more cash in our coffers and be able to act quickly. And just be ready to take action, right? Make sure that we have a plan in place as we're planning for this year, for budgeting of what we want to do, and then just be pretty nimble. Make sure you're listening to what's happening and keeping an eye on all of your metrics.
I think the part that resonated the most out of what you said is the piece of having a written what if plan. And I would hope that most business owners have at least a strategic plan going into the next year. But doing some of those what if scenarios, we learned a lot going through COVID that the uncertainty can bring up a lot of emotions. And sometimes those tend to skew to the negative and cause panic may be too strong of a word, but cause emotional reactions and decisions to be made that are based on those emotional reactions instead of sort of being out of that circumstance and being able to script something that would be more factually or business minded of a plan than something that's just a reaction. So I think that's a top takeaway of today is to make sure you run some of those what if scenarios.
And make them concrete and, have an actual, not just we will do this in theory, but what are the action steps to take and what are the thresholds that you'll take them, right? Okay, if this happens, if this reduces 10%, we're going to do this. If it reduces 15%, we're going to do this. Be very intentional about that planning. The jobs report came out today. I only read the ADP one because that was available by the time I woke up and I was doing my morning reading. And unemployment is staying steady at 4%. Jobs actually decreased in November, according to the ADP national report, but driven by small businesses, which is eye-opening. Large businesses have increased in November their jobs availability, but small businesses have decreased their job availability. So also, while you're doing all this planning, look at your folks, at your team, and again, be ready to make decisions if needed. On
The
either
count
way, hiring or in any faction.
the counterpart to that ADP report this morning was that the small businesses that Andrea's talking about, 45% of employment is based on those employed in small businesses. So that's a crazy significant chunk of the economy when you talk about the employment specifically related to those size businesses. So
Absolutely.
another economic trend that we're seeing, of course, is AI and technology as a growth buffer. So trade and policy can be a little bit of a downer sometimes when we're talking about that, but technology and AI are offering us a little bit of optimism. So Kate, can you discuss how business owners can use AI and technology to reshape some of their business models?
Yeah, and just to extend a little bit on what Andrea was saying with the job market is no matter what industry you're in, I constantly hear that my clients can't find talent or they can't find people. So companies are really trying to pivot with AI and embracing technology only because, AI is not really replacing people, but maybe it's helping in some areas make their job a little easier or more efficient. You're also taking out some of that like human error in some cases. So I think that's really important. We have clients that, are automating things or jobs that are repetitive. We're finding ways to create other ways of doing that because they may not be able to find more people to bring on to do that. And if you're not using the money to bring on people, we're having businesses use the money for technology, right? Other things are service lines. Clients are now they're taking off with new service lines because of all this new technology and AI. And I know for us, we're doing more of our CAS department, we call it, of outsourcing businesses, bookkeeping and accounting because of all the technology nowadays. They can do that. So they're saving on the cost of maybe an internal person that they have and automating, maybe paying the bills and not all that manual work that they've had to do in the past. So I know that's been a success for us with a new service line. So AI has been really, we've been able to embrace technology with that service line.
I think too, there's a lot of, yes, there's certain areas in industries that are ripe for automation and ripe for being replaced by technology, but there's also components of people's jobs and roles that can be alleviated so you can sort of be strategic with your capacity when you look at taking some roles or some components of individuals' jobs, not replacing a whole individual, but sort of shuffling things around and sharing some things, if you will, with technology.
Yeah, and I hear this a lot from some of my clients that their team members are scared when they're introducing a new piece of equipment or technology that's they think is going to replace their job, and then they're not as open to using it because they think that's going to happen. But we're really trying to push them and keep them open-minded as if you don't embrace it, you're going to fall behind the times with all this very fast changing technology.
And every industry is different depending on the customers or the clients that you serve. And I think for us in consulting and tax and business strategy, our greatest connection to our clients is the relationships that we've built with them and that we continue to build with them, which, at least as far as I've seen, AI does not replicate in a nearly close manner to human contact is. So I think that if you leverage the technology from the strategic side, from the automation side, you can spend more time in the relationship piece of it, which is for us, again, so critical because you're building those connections, you're getting deeper relationships, you're learning more about, for us business owners, and more about their businesses. And it just opens up not necessarily not other service lines necessarily, but other opportunities to working with clients. And I think that that's, again, a growth opportunity for us.
Absolutely.
So interest rates and inflation. The prediction out there for 2026 is that inflation is going to be roughly around 3%. We can't necessarily predict how quickly that might be the number that we get to, or how quickly interest rates will be manipulated to get to that number. But Andrea, what can a business owner do to manage their interest rate risk?
So I think we're also potentially looking at another rate cut by the end of the year. I think we're at 3.75 right now, and they're looking to go down to about 3.5 this year, potentially. And then I think potentially looking at the threes next year. So one of the things we can certainly do if we anticipate that rates are going to go down is delay some long-term debt if you can't refinance it. Maybe lease instead of buying, and then buying when rates are a little lower. Communicate with your banks. We always say make sure that you have your line of credit in place prior to needing it. But certainly keeping open communication with your banks so that in the event that it does go down, ask for a rate reduction. The better relationship that you have with your banks and your banker, the more willing they are to keep you happy and keep you, with them. So, there's, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. But certainly as rates decrease, those rates can be negotiable.
Very true. So, just to kind of round out the economic trends section, what business owners should really be focusing on is resilience planning, building that flexibility into your business modeling so you can stress test it, create contingency plans, those what if scenarios that Andre was talking about. Digital acceleration, being able to lean into the investments on the technology side, not looking at them as cost centers, but strategically generating growth drivers through the implementation of automation and technology, potentially some supply chain redesign, building in some redundancy, moving things from offshoring to more nearshoring in this environment. And then lastly, financial strategy, which is what Andre just talked about with reevaluating some of your debt, focusing on more favorable rates, hedging some of the interest rate risk, and keeping those cash is king liquidity buffers whenever you can. So the second area we're going to talk about today for the future is the leadership agility. So it's switching gears for a higher level strategy on trends and focusing on the people and how business owners and those on your team can lead through 2026 successfully. So I'm going to look at this as a little bit of a round robin of questions for the two of you. So we'll kind of do a little ping ponging back and forth. But Caitlin, I'll start with you. We would all probably agree that a culture of continuous learning and innovation is necessary. I know that's the strategy and the value system we have at SKC. It helps us to engage our team members and to remain relevant in the hiring world and in servicing our clients. But what role should leaders play in modeling continuous learning in the age of AI and sort of helping their team navigate that constant information that's out there with technology and the internet and AI?
Well, first, I want to start with as I get older, I'm noticing the newer team members are using technology much better than me, right? Like I used to think I was techie, but now as I'm seeing, the newer workforce come in, they are very good at technology. It's just we have the experience, right? So like accounting and tax experience, they may not necessarily have. So working with them on how they're using it, but also being able to change how we do things. I may have always done research one way, but they're coming to me with different ways of doing things. So, they're teaching us as much as we're teaching them. So I think that has been great. But as a leader, we really have to be open to change and not just always doing it the same way that we've always done it.
It's really bad that you feel like they're more advanced than you because you're younger than I am. And I don't know what that means for me then, if that's how you feel. Andrea, how do you prevent complacency in teams when things within our market or technology shifts happen so quickly?
Well, you start by just talking at a really fast, high pitch way. No, you don't. Um, so I think we have to keep them engaged in what they are interested in. Listening to our team members and hearing where they want to develop themselves professionally, where they think they have their own voids and or just want to make themselves better in an area. Or as we've been learning recently, focusing on people's strengths instead of people's weaknesses and helping them give them resources to better make their strengths much better, whether that's by projects, learning opportunities, classes. I think we have to zone in on what each individual needs and tailor it to them specifically. Everybody's different. Everybody wants to feel like they are heard and valued and that they belong, and giving and focusing on their strengths and what they want to do and how they envision their life and their career path is really just the only way to keep them fully engaged.
I think those are best captured in one-on-ones with their manager or their supervisor so that there's dedicated meetings. It's not part of your annual or semi-annual review. It's a separate learning and growth meeting that you're having and you're understanding what each individual is motivated by and whatever it is that they may want to learn more of. Most people will be engaged and more present and a better team member for you when they're working on things that they enjoy, whether it's something that challenges them, and you're best served in getting that information directly from them. And those are the investments in your team that I think are crucial to really make sure that you make the time for.
Absolutely.
So this question is for both of you. You can decide who wants to go first. But how do we create psychological safety in our environments at the office so that teams feel empowered, that it's okay to experiment with different things, to learn different things, and then ultimately, if it comes to it, to fail fast and then make those corrections?
I can go. So, what I like about SKC and how we implement new technology is we always do it with groups. So, you're never really alone, I would say, when you're learning something new. So, we do things as a group. So, if we implement a new technology or we're using AI, we talk about it. So, what's working, what's not working. So, we're constantly communicating and taking, webinars and listening to outside people of how to use that to get better because it is changing significantly fast. But I also want to bring up that it's important to also allow your team members to do things like you said, fail, right? So this is just an example. I had someone chat GPT something. They came back to me with the wrong answer. So I asked them to go back, do a little bit more research because I knew what the answer would be. And eventually they came to the right answer. But with AI, it's really important that we also teach ChatGPT and these technologies what is right. So he was able to then inform ChatGPT the correct answer for for that system to update and be correct. But he first failed, right? And I had to explain that to him and walk him through how to fix that. So I think that's really important because that's how we learn best is unfortunately sometimes failing.
Mhm.
So I think Caitlin's 100% spot on. And I would just add to that also, being authentically vulnerable and exposing our own failures. I do it all the time. I tell people when they first get here and they get review points, Like, don't worry. I get to this day, I still get a laundry list of review points. That's the whole point of a reviewer, right? We all need a second pair of eyes. We are not perfect. We are not machines. We are humans. And so we can't expect that from ourselves. We have to give ourselves grace. And I think communicating that and constantly saying, give yourself some grace, give yourself some time, let's learn from it. I've also, when people do make mistakes and they come to you, I think we have to be very understanding and come from a place of, they tried their best. Everybody's doing the best that they can, and we've all done it. And then give them the option. How do you want to handle it? Do you want to contact the client? Do you want me to contact the client? What can I do to support you, to help you get through this, and to make it a learning opportunity, but not make you feel bad about it? So I think it also comes down to just communicating, right? I'm still going to say communication solves 99% of the world's problems. And the more that we communicate with each other and can be open and honest with each other, I think the more we create that open space to be exactly who we are.
And communication is an art. It's something that you have to practice and learn different techniques and strategies to really be effective at it, I think. I think to summarize what the two of you said in this section, it's really the tone from the top, right? It's making sure that you're vulnerable so your team members know it's okay to make mistakes. It's making sure that you communicate your own mistakes when they happen. I mean, I know that the three of us have been in situations where we're kind of doing an after actions debrief with one team member or a group of team members on something, and we ask, the same questions over and over. Well, what did we learn from this? And how could we have done something different to not have gotten this outcome? Or what will we do different next time so that we get a different outcome? And it's sort of creating that culture from the tone from the top so that the rest of the team, and it trickles down, understands that this is okay. Not everything's going to be perfect. We're a company that's made up of humans, and I've yet to find the perfect human. So this is what's going to happen, and we just do our best to make sure that everybody on the team feels that it's a safe environment. But again, I think it just ultimately is that tone from the top. So let's stay on focusing on supporting our team for 2026 and beyond. And this kind of continues on with a little bit of the communication discussion that we were talking about. Caitlin, what emotional intelligence skills are most critical for leaders or managers to have in 2026?
Andrea touched on this a little bit before of empathy, right? Like we need to have that human touch with our team members. We need to listen to them. They need to feel heard. We're always so busy with the work, but we have to stop and like talk, communicate, and just like I said, listen, right? So that empathy is very important. And then the adaptability, right? Like AI is changing the way we work. So we have to be open to adaptability, like just being open to that change, embracing that change, for us and to support our team members of also doing that.
And Andrea, how do leaders maintain that empathy that Caitlin was talking about, but also still understanding that, we're running a business and we need to be able to drive performance and accountability amongst our team?
It's a great question. And this actually came up while taking the 2-day unreasonable hospitality seminar that we took, because we learned during that seminar that leaders generally either lead with empathy or lead with force. You generally don't have both in the same. So what they did was they took us and put us in groups of empathy leaders and force leaders and said, okay, like teach each other like what you should do to take on the other's skill. And I think it comes back down to all of what Kate said before, listening. Just all you have to do is, I think the best way to show that you're empathic is to listen so that they're heard and understood first, and make sure that they're okay first, because they, as a human, they come first as a being, and then after they feel secure and better, then we push and for the work. So I think we can all get better at the other side of what we're not. I think it takes intentionality to do that. I know for me, personally, you guys probably are going to be shocked at this, but I tend to lead by force. So
I was going to ask you if you self-selected into those groups or if you took an assessment to get you there.
I don't think anybody needs that assessment for me, but it takes intentionality to make sure that when you want to react in a certain way, you take a second and think, okay, this is a person, their life, what's important to them, this is how they feel, and it must be important. We have to make it important to us, to make sure that our team is taken care of first. And then once they are, then have at it. Let's go.
But it goes back to what we talked about, where people need to feel safe in their environment. And when they feel that safety, not only does it build the stickiness of the relationship between the team member and the organization, or the team member and the leader, but it also builds that stickiness of wanting to do a good job, wanting to be engaged, and wanting to really show up as a team member. And I think that's the part that's so important to, again, like you said, making people feel like they're being heard and being understood. And, the intentionality for me, as I've, been managing partner of SKC, one of the things that I've learned as one of the most important things to do is understand your team members' communication styles, what motivates them, how they like to be communicated with. And I don't mean by text or email, but, are they somebody like me who, as I've recently put into words, not that I didn't know this, but my communication style is impatient and blunt. So not everyone's like that. In fact, most people aren't. So as the managing partner, I need to adjust my way of communicating to not being impatient and blunt, because most people don't react well to that unless you are, in the same category that I am. So that's the part for me that I've had to be intentional about, is making sure that I change who I am in my style of communicating to meet my team where they need to be and where they need me to be mostly. So this one again goes to both of you. What are the biggest blind spots that you see when you work with business owners or leaders? What are those blind spots today when it comes to people and culture?
Go ahead, Kate, you want to go?
Yeah, that's fine. So for me, when I'm working with industries and business owners of all different ages, and I will say for myself, and my partners know that I'm trying to work through this, is not judging team members on how they work versus how I work, right? So I have always worked really hard, and not that my team members don't work really hard, it's just they may be working differently, or maybe we can say smarter than me in some cases, where accounting back in the day, we may have worked 80 plus hours, right? And now we're trying to really reduce that amount of time, better work-life balance, just more happiness, or because there's also AI and technology to help us not have to work those insane hours like we used to. So I know for me, a big blind spot has been trying to adapt and accept that although I used to do it this way, that's not always, how everyone else is going to do things. So I know for me, that's my example I wanted to bring up.
Your mantra for 2026 is comparison is the thief of joy. So don't compare others to you or you to others.
Yes.
I like that saying. Comparison is the thief of joy. Wow, that's a good one.
I mean, I didn't create it, but I will repeat it because I
I
think it's
need to have
beneficial.
that like written on my computer so I see it every day.
Um, so what do we need where are blind spots? Right, sorry.
Blind spots.
So I think our blind spots is often how our communication style lands with our team. I know for me, I'll give you an example. I am amazing in a spin class when I have an instructor who is yelling and screaming and let's go and pushing me hard because I need to go. I need to do it. I need to, right? That's me. Others would never go to that class because they don't want an instructor who is yelling at them to move their legs. You can do this. You can, right? So we have to, I think our blind spot is not realizing that our communication style isn't everyone's. We're doing Clifton strengths with of all of our strengths, and we have this clover leaf program now that also put our disc into it, and it tells us our communication style, which is what Sarah was referring to before. And you can compare people and how they communicate. And it's very interesting to see what my natural communication style is, and how that lands with others. So I think in order to lead a team effectively, we have to understand how our team receives information, how they best receive information, how they can best learn, right, which is their style, and how we can communicate to get them motivated, because not everybody is motivated by the same things and not everybody hears things the same way. I can say the same thing to 5 different people on my team in the exact same tone with the same words, and it lands differently. So understanding what how I communicate and what motivates my team, I think are the blind spots that we all need to uncover to have a very efficient, company where everybody's happy. It's possible. It just takes work to get there. I'm really happy we're going in this direction. I think it's amazing that we're doing this. So, but it does take work. It's not just going to come because we want it to be there.
And a couple years ago, our theme at SKC for the year, and we actually carried it over into 2 years, was people first. And that is all, it was all about what Andrea's talking about. It's the intentionality of spending those one-on-one conversations with your team and understanding their differences and understanding their styles and all of that. And that's a continual effort to make, and you have to continue to be intentional about it. And just because we had that as our theme for 2 years doesn't mean that we then gave it up. It just continues on. But we needed that dedicated chunk of time to make it the focus so that it became sort of woven into our culture. Now it's much easier to carry it forward because we did a lot of that legwork in the first couple of years that we focused on it. So let's talk about some skills to develop, and what will be important for leaders in 2026. So Andrea, I'll kind of start this one with you. What new leadership skills will be non-negotiables that leaders need to have for 2026 that maybe weren't as important 5 years ago?
I'm going to go back to what I said before, which is individual assessments and learning development or development of your people. I think days of, if you are a third-year accountant and you're trying to become a manager, you need to do this, this, and this, and you have to take these classes and do, the systematized training is great as a starting point, but it really has to be tailored to people, and you have to take into account, and leaders have to take into account the health and well-being, the wellness, the mental health and wellness of people and what they actually want. I think, historically we had, this was how we do it, and this is how you get from, supervisor to manager to director to partner or whichever in your industry or your field. And that doesn't work anymore. Not if you want a team that feels like they belong, because everybody is different. One size doesn't fit all. One size fits one.
We are all unique, exactly. Kate, I know that you're focusing a lot on your continued growth and development as a leader. You started this year, and I know you have some plans to continue on with certain coursework in 2026. How do we prepare our leaders to operate in a world that is greatly defined now by AI, uncertainty, and the constant change that we've been talking about?
Yeah, I know I've brought this up multiple times already today, but the adaptability, people have to be okay with change, and with AI and technology changing so fast. I mean, we really have to push people to be okay with that change. And Sarah, you say this all the time, is you have to be able to, you have to be okay, comfortable to uncomfortable. Wait, what's the saying? It's
You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Thank you. And that it's just so true, especially nowadays with all the constant change that we have. But even with all this change, I always go back to that human interaction and how important it is for anyone in any industry. But I know we're very good at it at SKC, where the team is maybe behind a computer a lot, but then we're pulling them into a meeting with a client so that they see the way we interact with our clients, how those relationships are. So I'm pushing, those team members to have that conversation, right? Where they need to verbalize and have that human touch sometimes, where I think that is really important in today's world, because I feel like we're losing a lot of that with all the AI and technology that we have.
I think one of the things that's important for us in SKC and other business owners is with this constant change and with the rapidness of the change, not only how consistent it is, but how quickly it happens, is we can fall back on our values. So if we're faced with a decision, whatever that might be, or a pivot point, we can go back to our values that we've agreed upon and live by and help leverage those values to make the decisions to take us in the right direction. So that for us, I know has been helpful when we've kind of struggled with another element of change or something unexpected that has come up for us.
And I would like to bring up, because I think sometimes people get the impression that we do all of this in-house, the three of us with no external help. I want you to know that we hire professionals. We are not great at all things HR. We intentionally have wanted to get better, so have hired people to help us get there. As business owners, I think sometimes we listen to this and think, well, that all sounds great, but I've got 17 meetings after this, and then I've got to take my kids to 18 programs and whatever is happening, right? We have life. We're still running a day job. So it's very hard to incorporate all of the things that we're talking about while still running our businesses. Get help. There are professionals that we didn't put together our strengths trainings and all of these things. We hired someone, right? There are and they're lovely and they're great at it, right? So I want business owners to understand that while all of this seems amazing and positive and great that we did it, we didn't do it on our own. Nobody does anything on their own. We all have to leverage somebody. We all need, other professionals in our lives to help us get there. Just as business owners need accountants, we need others to help us grow and be better too. So I just want to put it out there that this isn't all Sarah, Caitlin, and Andrea doing these things. It's how we've incorporated the best people around us to get these things in place.
Right. Know your strengths to know the best use of your time. And I think that's an important point on a lot of fronts, but mostly because it brings the capability of these resources to businesses of smaller size, right? So you're not talking about 100+ team that has a director of HR and a whole HR department or a whole learning and development partner or a whole people experience department. We're talking about, SKC is a 28-person company that is utilizing consultants. We don't have a full-time HR director that we keep on our payroll. We reach out to the people that are best in their field because that's what's going to give us what we need to continue on the trajectory that we want to go on.
And I just want to add to that, what's made me a better business owner and also working parent is being okay with asking for help and delegating where needed. I mean, that's definitely been a huge, help for me.
Well, I think as business owners, everybody on this call who's a business owner can agree. At a very young age, we all think I'm better if I do it myself. And as we get more and more into our position and running companies, we realize, no, that's not true. That's actually false.
Very false.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump to the third area we're going to focus on today, which is data-driven strategy. So we've touched on some global economic trends. We've touched on people and skills and leadership. Now we're going to change to leveraging your data as a way to gain clarity, agility, and a competitive advantage. So our business intuition in 2025 and into 2026 and beyond is no longer enough for us. So we need to be able to leverage the incredible amount of data that we have to help us become agile decision makers in 2026. So Andrea, I'm kicking this off with you. What are the most critical data categories a business should focus on for 2026?
So I think it depends on your industry, but in general terms, I would say one, the health of your company, first and foremost. whether you can have those metrics on your own, or your CFO can help, or your accountant, or whomever, but start with your baseline of, where am I from a debt to equity? How old is my AR? Some of your financial health metrics, to understand where you are, and where you potentially want to be, or what could really cause a problem in the business, right? Whether it be a cash flow problem, um, or eventually a debt problem, or any of those kind of components. I would also say that we need to utilize the data that we have to, in some instances, make predictions. Of course, they're not going to be perfect. They are going to be estimates, but we need to try to forecast about what's going to happen and occur, so we can make better decisions. So, utilizing the data that we have to project into 2026, as best we can, to help figure out, exactly where our train is going. Specific metrics, of course, I'm always a huge fan of, production. So whether you're running a production line, or your production is people, what is eventually going to turn into an invoice and eventually turn into cash, I think is important, because if the production line isn't producing, then the cash isn't going to be there 90 days from now. So we have to make sure that whatever our production line is, that the production line is producing, and even before that, right? What is our pipeline? What's in our pipeline? What are we focusing on? What does our pipeline look like now compared to last year or the last 3 years? And what does that indicate for the future of our sales and our production, and then and hiring, and all of those components?
And I think it's a really good exercise for business owners and their management team to go through, because every business is a little bit different. So, as accountants, we think a lot of the financial indicators, right? But that's just really one category representing data that we have. It's very numbers driven, so that's what people tend to focus on. But there's also customer behavior data, and there's operational efficiency data, and there's workforce metrics like production that you were talking about, Andrea. And so, as a management team, I invite you, for part of your strategy session, to sit down and really brainstorm under these different umbrellas of data that we have. What are metrics that you should be looking at to determine the health of your organization? So, Caitlin, as business owners, we're drowning in data and we're starving for clear insights from that data. How do leaders avoid overwhelm and ensure that they're focusing on something that's meaningful to them?
I'm happy you asked me this, because as Andrea was speaking, what's coming to mind is all the dashboards that we're, implementing for clients across all different industries. I mean, we know I work heavily in healthcare, but I also have other small businesses, and these dashboards have been able to bridge a lot of their technology and systems together, so that they don't have to spend all this time looking for answers. It's just, it's like a snapshot, right? So picking what meaningful, financial factors and items that you were just mentioning, being able to see that at a quick glance is helping our businesses make quicker, smarter decisions. So I know those dashboards have been really helpful for a lot of our clients, even for us. At SKC, we can see, capacity for staff and, new clients, and do we need to hire new individuals? We're able to, there's a lot of data out there, but putting that all together has really helped us make a lot of decisions.
And I
So,
think, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, please go ahead.
I think too, one of the biggest benefits that a lot of our clients who have dashboards uh, is that they've expanded the dashboard so that certain pages are viewable by their team members. So the sales team has their own dashboard. They have, and they can see their own metrics, and, for a wholesaler, what's the top selling product right now? What product has the largest margin? Things along those lines. So it's not just the leaders, but taking this information and making it available to your team so that everybody's on the same page and knows where you're going and how they should behave and react to that data. I think keeping the data just at the leadership level is a mistake. We being more transparent with how the company is running and what is in what's happening at all levels with your team certainly helps them understand what's happening from an external forces and internal forces, and helps them develop better skills and decision making ability.
I think that's important too, because we use dashboards to run SKC with real data all the time. And a lot of times, what you think you wanted to see when you built out the dashboard is still great and wonderful, but it also pops out other insights that you didn't think you would get by looking at that data in that particular way or that comparison in that particular way. So that's been interesting for me as we've gone through using those for SKC. But I want to round out this section with a question that's kind of unfair for both of you. If you could pick one important metric to focus on as a business owner, what would that be and why?
So I can go first. So everyone that knows me knows client service is very important for me
Mm.
and my relationship. So I love our marketing dashboard where we can see where clients come from. So doing sales, we'll call it like the old way of sales, stressed me out. I didn't really want to have to do that. So my relationships with my clients turn into referrals. I can see that very easily with the dashboard that we have because we can measure that, right? So when we have happy clients, they refer us business. When we have happy clients, we have happy team members. So everyone's happy, and that makes me happy. So that is definitely my favorite measurement.
Very good. Unexpected
Yeah,
answer, but very good.
yeah, that's a great point too, because you're right. We also measure client retention, right? But we measure client retention in the opposite way, meaning what was the attrition? But and
Right.
you do
Why
know
did we
this, so
lose?
explaining to everybody else, right? So, but also looking at the percentage of or the referrals, you're right, is a direct correlation to client satisfaction because clients aren't going to refer you if they're not satisfied. So great point, Kate. I like that. I like that a lot.
And when we did
Um,
that exercise, Anja, I remember we were able to see that majority of
yeah,
our business was from client referrals. So then
yes,
we were able to
absolutely.
concentrate on, okay, well, let's really make sure that, our relationships with our clients, like, that's
Right,
important for us.
right. Absolutely, absolutely. Um, I look at so many metrics, and Sarah knows that. Sarah and Caitlin both know this because I'm a morning wake up, read my news, and like look at metrics and look at things. So typically they'll get an email from me at 6 a.m.,
6:30.
6:30 when I'm reading through all of these things and be like, hey, did you notice this? Did you notice that? So I can only think about what do I go look at first to say this is what I do. Maybe it will help everybody. I always look at OpenAR. And I look at OpenAR from a perspective of that's essentially cat, it's work already done. Um, I do look sometimes at production. Generally, I know Sarah looks at it every week. So I don't have to monitor it. And if there's an issue, she takes care of it. So somebody though should be looking at weekly production, whether it's you or one of your other leadership members. Um, and then overall, and keep in mind, we as a business, we only invoice once a month. So for us, daily sales isn't a metric, right? For many of our clients, they're selling every day. There's a daily revenue. There's a daily, component. We don't have that daily component. Our daily component is collected in AR. So from that perspective, which is what I do measure every day. And it's like a quick glance. I don't know. I like to see it. But overall, I think that we should be keeping in mind, where is our production and where's our capacity, and I think that's ever telling of ultimate, cash flows and either the ability, either to have to bring on more people or the ability to bring on additional clients and scale without bringing additional people on.
I knew you would be able to give just one metric.
I can't, you know me, I'm
Hard to
addicted
pick
to so
one.
many.
I may have left the most exciting topic for last, and that's taxes and tax planning and tax
Ooh.
strategy and changes. So we'll round out our hour and about our last 10 minutes with some tax topics. So we had the tax legislation that passed this year, earlier in 2025. We elected a new governor in New Jersey. Caitlin, what should business owners be paying attention to in 2026, whether that's on the federal side or the state side when it comes to taxes and regulation?
There's so many things. I'll touch on two. One is R&D, research and development. I know a lot of businesses, with all the changes that happened over the past few years, some stopped doing it, some just weren't, or weren't benefiting from as much. But I know for me, with constant innovation and my clients using new technology, they are qualifying for R&D. So I'm having them explore that and see if it's worthwhile doing that, especially that you can deduct it in 2026. The other one is what I want to bring up is SKC at a, gosh, probably 6 years ago. We implemented a daycare in house. We had a lot of individuals who were having babies and we didn't want to lose those individuals, right? So we brought in an in-house daycare, and now there's a tax credit if you bring in, for employers to bring a daycare in. So I was very happy because I was able to benefit when we had that daycare. So, I love that this new tax credit is out there. So I think for employers, if they want their employees to be able to come to work and have their children maybe not far from them, it gives you a sense of ease.
We were so cutting edge back then, weren't we? So, Andrea, what are some of the compliance burdens that business owners should anticipate in 2026, and how can they potentially get ahead of them or mitigate them?
Yeah. So I know that one that's been an issue for many years, that is still an issue, is contractors versus employees. So, making sure that our employees are our employees, and we're not treating them as contractors. The Department of Labor is certainly coming down on that. We've seen it at the New Jersey level. We've seen it at the federal level. We've seen a lot of audits come out. And they're not, they're pretty strong on it. So I think we need to make sure that from our internal folks are properly classified, because ultimately it comes down to payroll taxes, right? That's what they're concerned about, payroll taxes and unemployment. So in the tax, it's still kind of relevant in the tax world. From a compliance perspective, I also think it's going to be a little difficult, unfortunately. Well, I shouldn't say difficult. I think we're going to have a delay in tax season 2026 for 2025 because of all of the changes. There are going to be updates to the forms. They're still in draft form, from my understanding. So the new forms for 2025 that we're going to utilize to file our taxes aren't even complete yet, which means that our systems that we use to file returns have not integrated those new forms. So I think everybody just needs to be patient with compliance. And on top of it, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you think about it, there are less people at the IRS. So we don't have we don't have the availability of people to help us get through some of the compliance questions or issues that are facing. I don't know if anybody on this call was a recipient, but many letters went out from the IRS over the last few months that said taxpayers owed all this money, but it was just because the IRS didn't have the last payment that they made associated with their account because of the shutdown. So I think we need to understand that there are delays and it's going to be slower than it has in the past, to the extent that we can utilize our online accounts with the IRS and our online, New York is great at it. I wish everybody, all states could utilize New York's metrics of like going online. You see everything. You can respond to notices. You can help. You can do many things online with New York. I wish everybody had the New York system, but they don't. So I think we just need to be patient with the compliance perspective of all things tax next year.
So here comes my other difficult question to each of you. If you could pick one piece of tax planning advice for business owners in 2026, what would that be?
I think out. So I've been reviewing a lot of businesses, new businesses of ours, like new clients, their structure. So not everyone has the proper structure. So we're reviewing with all these tax changes over the years, especially pass around to do tax, right? So if you're a sole member LLC, should you be a partnership? Should you be an S corp? So I know for me, that is one area that I've been looking at for a lot of my clients to make sure they're in the right structure.
Great one. And I would say once you have thought about where you want your business to be over the next 3 years, I think it's really important to invest in getting there instead of just thinking from a tax perspective, oh, I need to reduce my profit, so let me go buy something. I think we need to strategically invest in our businesses, not wait till year end, but understand in a perfect world, how does our business run? And if we're not there yet, how do we get there? What can we invest in to get there? Whether that's in systems, whether that's in professionals to, help with, like we were talking about earlier, culture. So there are ways to strategically invest in our businesses that helps reduce taxes that not only gives us a better business, but makes your business more valuable. So at the same time, you're also creating value for your company. You're building, you're becoming more saleable. So it really does help in all facets.
That's a great point because I get the question a lot of, well, here's your tax projection, right? We did a tax projection for you for Q4 and year end. Well, what happens if I donate X to charity? Or what happens if I go buy a vehicle? Or what happens if I go buy a piece of equipment? And I mean, this is my philosophy, and correct me if it's also not all of SKC's philosophy, because I feel like we're all in sync on this. While tax reduction is a strategy and a goal, I don't believe that it should be the driving goal or the primary goal of running your business, right? Because to Andrea, your point, the valuable investments and the strategic investments that you make into your company should be part of a larger plan and laid out and not just something that you're making a decision on in the fourth quarter because you realize that your bottom line is up 25% or whatever it might be. So, I understand as business owners, the three of us, we don't really enjoy giving more money to Uncle Sam or the state than we have to. But as a longer term vision of running a successful business, running a highly efficient and effective business, and a growth minded business, tax reduction should not be one of your top three strategies. That's just my personal opinion. And I think we're all kind of in sync on the SKC team with that.
Absolutely. We all agree on that. I'm constantly talking to clients, especially this time of year, of do you really need to buy that new car or that new piece of equipment? What's it going to do for your business, right? Is it going to make it more efficient or are we just money out the door? It's also explaining to them, don't use all your cash, especially in today's world where there's a lot of uncertainty. It's okay to finance or it's okay to have that line of credit. Like Andrea said before, like businesses need to have that line of credit to have there for when they need it. Because holding on to cash, especially right now with uncertainty, is important.
Mm. So
Absolutely.
as we get to the top of the hour, I would love to hear from each of you what prediction or trend you may be keeping an eye on for 2026, and if you have any advice that you can share with fellow business owners for success in the upcoming 12 months.
I'm keeping an eye on more local. As you know, we have a new Jersey governor who is coming in next year, and I'm really intrigued to see how this new administration comes up with the new budget, plan on really being more involved strategically through the NJBIA, and seeing what voices and where we can really push our resources and efforts to help business owners in the state and what plans they have in place to help business owners.
Mm. Yes, I'm equally as intrigued as you are. Good word there.
Yeah, and then we know we've talked about AI and technology, but I'm really trying to make sure my clients are educated on what's out there, even if it's me finding something for them that's going to help them, improve their business and or grow to that next level.
Yeah, and I think on the AI and technology front, something that we've all kind of gotten to at the same time at SKC is we're not going to bring on or investigate new software for the sake of having new software if it doesn't make anything better, make anything more efficient, or solve an existing problem that we have. Let's not get distracted by the software noise, if you will. And I think for us, because we were a little excited about it in the beginning, that was a good lesson as any business owner to say, let's have there be a strategic reason for it and not just new for the sake of new or different for the sake of different. Great. Thank you, ladies, for joining us so much. I really appreciate it. I always enjoy having you and having conversations of how we can help our clients and other business owners in our discussions. To the audience, thank you so much for joining us for this final office hour of 2025 and for any previous office hour that you've joined in the past. We wish everyone a wonderful rest of their Friday and a terrific holiday season. So we look forward to coming out with a new slate of topics in 2026. So please let us know if there's anything specific that you would like to have us speak on. Thank you so much again, guys, and have a great day.